And then I can cut out, I can like cut it at the beginning before I share it with you. There's Nicole.
Okay.
Hi, Nicole.
Hello,
Hi, thanks for joining.
thanks. Sorry, I'm in my car. Didn't quite get home yet.
It's okay. Is it that dark out?
Pardon
I guess
me?
it is dark right now. Yeah. It's like it is dark outside.
Yeah, it is. Am I the only one on? Oh, no, there are other people.
No, there's a few more.
Okay.
Hello there, whoever just joined. I can change your name if you want.
It's Sandy.
Sandy, thanks for being here. I'm gonna.
Yes, thank you.
All right, I'm recording, screen sharing. We're good to go. We'll give it one more minute. Nicole, Sandy, and Ruby, are you in the Women in Tech group?
For Sandy, I am part of the meetup group, but I don't get the chance to do much of the meetups, but this one I was very interested in, so I made sure I could have the time to do this one.
Glad to hear that. It makes me feel good.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
what's the other group?
I know there's a Cleveland Young Professionals group too.
Oh, I live in Maryland, so so no, I don't think I'm a member of that group.
Yeah, I am.
It's definitely different since we started the the virtual meetings, because our Northeast Ohio Women in Technology now have people popping in from all sorts of places outside of Ohio.
No, but isn't that like amazing? Like so our team at Boulder is all over. We don't have an office because it's all virtual, and our clients are like all over the place. We have a coach in Canada, even coaching somebody who's in Texas, and like it's just really cool. And I kind of like forget now, and then when I get on calls with people who are in Cleveland, I'm like, oh my god, I guess I could see you in person. Hi, Angela. Hi. Okay, cool. Well, I think we are okay to get started. And then I'm sure people will come in a little bit more, so I can just keep letting them in and get, distracted, and that'll be fine. So Ellen, did you want to kick us off?
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay.
Sorry. I'm distracted because I'm trying to solve a work problem and kick off the meeting.
That's life, right? That's
life in IT. So, okay, welcome to tonight's NeoWIT meeting. I'd like to introduce Amy Schultz. She is a money coach and expert in financial wellness, and she is going to give us some wonderful information about our financial wellness and improving our financial growth.
Yay. Yeah, thank you all for being here. I'm Amy. I'm co-founder and head coach at Boulder Money. We are a company on a mission to close the gender wealth gap. So our vision is to make sure that every woman in this room, in any room that we go into, whether it's a virtual room or real, is not held back because of money. And I do this from my own experience. So I started out in finance and economics and realized the need eventually for a more emotional and behavioral approach to money. So I became a certified money coach after going through my own money mistakes and money experiences, and have never looked back. With everything we do, there's a mindset piece and there's an action. Especially for women, we have to be talking about the emotional side of money because it's so important. And I'll go into depth about that. Today, we're going to uncover how money affects us. I'm going to share some tips for facilitating financial wellness in your life. And so I wanted to just share some notes for this conversation before I get started. We run at Boulder, we run group coaching sessions like this pretty often. Usually a little more interactive than we do today, but I do still try to take the heaviness out of financial topics and money conversations. So I'm going to try to have some fun with this. You'll know how weird I am by the end of it. I want you to feel free to participate, ask questions, be fully present, be honest with everybody in the room, be honest with yourself. And one thing we do if somebody shares or you want to show support or agree with what they said, is we high five the camera. That's our way at Boulder of saying, like, I hear you, I see you, I sympathize with you, or I'm excited for you, whatever it is. That's how we show support. Okay. So money affects us in so many ways. We can only cover so much in this next hour or so that we have together, but this is our opportunity to introduce the idea of being better with money, developing a healthy relationship with money, and then taking small but important steps to build financial confidence. Okay. So I have one ask of you, just to kick it off with a question. High five the camera if you have heard that men earn more money than women. If you've heard this, high five the camera. I know it's like a horrible thing to high five for. Unfortunately, we all know this. So why do you think that is? I'd love it if you could just drop some reasons in the chat. Why do you think it is that men earn more than women?
They negotiate for more.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you stole my punchline. Yes. Yeah, keep dropping them in the chat. What are some other reasons? They feel more worthy. That's a huge one, Angela. We're going to touch on that.
Men are considered the breadwinners, so they ought to earn more than women.
Mm-hmm. They're confident. From the deepest of their confident, it's still a male predominantly world. Yeah, they're considered the breadwinners. Like if a man does something and it's viewed completely different than if one of us does something, right? Like thinking through how much money do they need to provide for their family. Cultural too, totally. Thank you, Anne, and welcome, Anne. Yeah. So all of these are true, and we're not asking. And it's not because we don't know that we might be making less. It's not because it doesn't make us super freaking angry, some of us. It's because we're missing the emotional tools to have this constructive, meaningful conversation around our self-worth, like somebody had mentioned self-worth, and our futures. Okay. And this is just about earning more. This is about earning more in the workplace and the job that you're doing, right? But think about all the areas of personal finance where we might need help, where we might need more than the standard education that we were given, which probably isn't great depending on where you went to school. I think even those of us who went to really good schools, there isn't a lot of personal finance education out there, right? But we're not asking because we don't know where to start, or we feel embarrassed about how little we might think we know. So the wealth gap between men and women, it might be an issue of financial literacy. We know this is true, but it starts with a lack of financial confidence. So that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today. Financial confidence is critical, especially for women. Studies have shown that when we have increased financial knowledge, we make better financial decisions. And that makes sense, right? Knowledge goes up, we make better decisions. We learn more, learn better, do better, right? But something was missing there still. There was still an investment gap between men and women, even with similar levels of financial knowledge. So they went back, they did more studies. And the truth is that when it comes to women and money, financial confidence, or that perceived ability with money, is a more important indicator of financial success than financial literacy. So perceived ability when it comes to money can sometimes be more important, right? So I'm going to touch on each of these pillars of financial confidence today. I'm going to start with helping you understand more about your own relationship with money, and then lead up to providing you with the knowledge about what are the basics of financial security, how do you feel in control of your money, and how do you achieve your goals. So starting with knowledge, yes, knowing is helpful, but it's not always the most critical piece because of that belief in yourself that is so important, that self-worth. You know more than you probably think you do. One of the studies they did showed that when it comes to men and women, they put out like a financial literacy quiz, and I don't have this in front of me, so I'm probably going to butcher it, but hopefully I can still get the point across. Is that when there were questions about financial literacy and they had the option to select I don't know, the women were selecting I don't know. When they took out the option, they always got the answer right instead of selecting I don't know. So it is this confidence gap. That's what we're seeing now. That's what we have to touch on. It comes from that belief in yourself. Another area of financial confidence that's huge, comes along with that self-belief, is self-control, right? It's staying rational and in control when shit hits the fan with your money, when things don't go your way in any area of your life. And it comes from acknowledging your emotions, your needs or wants, and then making an active choice to either embrace them or pass on them. This can be true for big decisions like where to invest your money. It's also true though for everyday spending, whether or not you want to buy coffee, online shop, whatever it is. So my question for all of you, and that's going to kind of lead us into the next slide too, is have you ever made an emotional decision about money? You can either raise your hand, put it in the chat, just say yes, +1. Have you ever made an emotional decision about money? Yeah. I still do. This is what I do for a living, and I still do. We still see this. Yeah. Yep. So understanding our relationship with money is how we take back that control and stop making emotional decisions and make more rational decisions that are aligned with what we really want out of life. So knowing how money affects you, what are your triggers around money, around spending, and not letting money negatively affect our relationships at home and at work. So it starts with our money story. When we onboard clients into our program, one of the first exercises we do is around looking back at your history with money. And that's because a lot of the questions that they want answered, like, why am I not saving more? Why do I have all this debt? Why can't I just do the things that I know I should be doing? They tie back to the story with money. So what you learned about money, what you believe about money, and your earliest experiences. So I want everyone to think about a significant memory that you have with money, something that really impacted you. Just take a minute, identify that memory. Okay. Does anyone want to share what comes up for them?
For me, it was that I started a paper route and had babysitting jobs. And it seemed like even back in my early days of saving money, the next thing I knew, I spent it on a bicycle. You know, it's like whatever I earned was gone already. And that became a pattern. That was my biggest issue of memory.
Yeah, so you already are aware of how that became a pattern. Does anybody else want to share? Thank you for sharing that, Sandy.
You're welcome.
For me, money was always around. If I wanted something, I would get it. So I never thought that I had to know how to manage money because it would always show up.
Yeah.
And I lived in a household where my brother was the one who was taught to manage money, and I wasn't, because he was the boy and I was the girl.
Yeah.
And I would have a husband to manage my money for me, so I didn't need to learn how to do it.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
And that has had a huge impact on my life.
Yeah, so that leads us to the next question, which is, what did you learn about money from that memory?
I could never keep it. I'd always spend it because I didn't know what else to do with it. I would earn, oh, it's not what you earn, it's how much you save. But I didn't know how to save either.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, how do I save, you know?
Yeah. That reminds, it's similar to one of my like beliefs that I had learned when I was little, because I had a lot of money stolen from me, like my first paycheck that I cashed little, I was like 16, but I was like, money just disappears. If you have too much money, it's just going to disappear. You're just going to spend it. So what's the point? So it took me so long to learn how to actually save and like hold on to my money instead of just getting rid of all of it. So for everybody came up with a memory, I'd love for you to identify how the belief that you learned from that memory, the belief that you have about money, how is that showing up in your life today? You can share it in the chat if you want, or you can unmute and share. I associate money with stress. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
associate money with confidence. I think it brings you the confidence that, you know, you can take your decisions. You have the power. But I struggle sometimes to save it.
Yeah.
You don't think too much when you think, okay, you have good number in your bank account. So you don't think too much, like, you know, about some small expenses, and that accumulates to a bigger one.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good point. It's interesting how you said that. I associate money with confidence, because it comes back to that like attachment of self-worth. What are we attaching our worth to? Is it about our ability and what we can do, or is it about having money? Right. Those are two very different things that we run into a lot. Angela, do you want to share more about associating money with stress? If not, that's okay. I'm just curious.
I definitely from childhood to adulthood associate it with a feeling of like there's never going to be enough.
Yeah.
I'd rather not think about it than think about it because it puts me in a state of feeling like panicky.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. So Sandy said the pattern of earning and spending, it still exists, right? So all of these patterns, all of these things that we learned, they can really show up in pretty concrete ways in our life today. If you think about like the last decision you made around money, without being aware of these beliefs and really like thinking about what do we want to do instead, how do we want to think and feel about money instead, those beliefs will drive our choices. And they may or may not lead us to do the thing that we actually want to be doing with our money. So the good news is that your money story, what you learned about money, that's not the way it has to be. There are ways that you can start noticing, like, how did I think about money in this moment? The decision that I just made to spend money, what was happening that I felt that that's what I wanted to do? And so you can start taking it moment by moment and look back at the reasoning behind why you're doing something. What was the thought? What was the belief behind it? And that's one of those ways that you start being really in control of your money. And it's similar to what we're going to talk about next, which is getting intentional with money, right? And every decision you make, you get to be really intentional, thinking about, this is my money story. This is what I learned about money. This is what I want to be doing instead. Okay. I like how Sandy said the pattern of earning and spending. Somebody else had said about spending. I know spending is a huge issue. Or was a huge issue for me. A lot of our clients that come to us are emotional spenders, and you know, they might earn enough, it might be okay, right, that they're affording this life, but it still creates stress when you're spending emotionally, even if it's not necessarily that you're going into the negative to do it or racking up credit card debt. It's still taking away from what you could be doing, right? So the truth about spending is that some of the biggest companies are using the most sophisticated technology to get you to spend constantly. You can be relaxing, scrolling on your phone, see an Instagram ad with something that you really need for your house, and within 2 minutes, it's on its way to your door. So of course that's addicting, right? Of course that becomes like a coping mechanism for us after a stressful day. So we can take back some of that control. We can spend with a little more intention. And I want to be very clear that you can spend your money on whatever you want, right? It doesn't have to be a situation of restricting yourself from getting the things you want, but we don't want you to fall into the trap of spontaneous spending. So we want to focus on what really matters to us and using our money for that, right? So just like we went back to look at our money stories and better understand our relationship with money, we can also look at our reasons for spending and our triggers behind our spending to better understand what we're doing with our money. A good example of this, the one that we hear a lot, is like we're all busy, right? We're in the working world. We have a lot going on, especially in the tech industry, if that's you. And so we hear from clients that they're tired and they're overwhelmed, so they're ordering in more, right? Especially if they're moms, they're ordering food instead of feeling like they have to cook for the kids that day. Maybe they're bored or unfulfilled in their job or their relationship, and so they're buying more things for the house, right? They're just doing something. The best thing that you can do, if you take away nothing else from this conversation, is catch yourself in those moments, get to the root of that spending, fill the emotional gap instead, right? So if spending is becoming the coping mechanism because you're burnt out at work, figure out what time boundaries you need at work, figure out what else you need to do so that it doesn't become such a trigger for you. But on the same way, you can also think about what are some other coping mechanisms that I can use besides spending. Okay. I'm going to give you an example from one of my clients, and then I'm going to ask all of you to do the same exercise. So we're going to call this client Lindsay, right? And Lindsay is a clothes shopper, online shopping. That was her thing, right? So she always wanted to be traveling more though, but she kept saying, it's just not in my budget. I can't travel. I can't travel. So we looked at where her money was going and realized that she was spending, and this is true, $1,000 a month on clothes. So digging into this, we kept talking about, what are the moments where you're deciding to do that? What's happening? What time of day even? And it turns out that shopping for clothes is her coping mechanism after a stressful day at work. She was president of her company. She had a lot going on. After a stressful day of work, that's all she wants to do is just sit on her phone and scroll. And the thought process behind that, it's not wrong, right? Like, I work really hard. I should get to buy the things I want. Sure, that's true, right? We don't want to take that away from anybody. But if we work together to put in the time boundaries that you need so you're not completely exhausted, if we work to think about what are some other like self-care things that need to happen instead of just buying the clothes, suddenly there is more room in your spending plan for things like travel, right? So for Lindsay, she was able to spend $600 less per month on the clothes, right? So she was still getting to spend on the clothes, but $100 of that was now going to yoga. 200 went to investments. So her money was working for her, reduces her stress already, makes her feel more in control. And then $300 went to a travel fund. So every 6 months she could make it a big trip, right? So the way we like to think about that is that she did not cut back her expenditures. She expanded what she was able to do with the money she was working really hard for just by getting intentional. For that reason, we hate saying budget. We don't like saying the word budget because people get so like, no, I don't want to be restricted. I don't want to not buy my lattes or, whatever else it is that's important to me. I want to be able to use my money for what I really want. And we're like, great, let's create an intentional spending plan. So what I want each of you to do is think about your own situation, where your money is going, what you spend it on. Identify one category that you want to start being more intentional about your spending and put it in the chat. A lot of like common ones we hear are food, online shopping, Amazon or Target. They're like whole categories that people focus on. So put it in the chat. Once you start thinking in this way, I guarantee you the next time you go to shop in one of these places, you're going to remember my face and you're going to start thinking about being more intentional. And is this really what I want? Yeah, Amazon online shopping for sure. That's a huge one. Amazon is so good at telling you what you need. We do an Amazon spending freeze in our membership program. And it's amazing how like it takes 2 weeks and then you remember that other stores exist and that Amazon isn't like the be all end all of the universe. And you're like, wow, like Alexa was really just in charge of everything. She's probably going to respond to me now that I said her name. Yeah, grocery takeout. And Angela, meal planning is something that I know really helps our clients a lot too, is like thinking ahead, right? Like I want to eat out a couple of times a week. So I want to plan for that. and then make sure that I have the meals in place that I need to in between. So again, like you don't have to feel bad about it. You still get to do the things you want to do. Okay. So Amazon. Costco, we call it getting Costco'd. It's like you walk in and it's similar to Target, like you, and then suddenly you need all these things. With Costco though, is the mentality of I'm saving so much money, so it'll be worth it, right? By buying things in bulk. But so you end up buying things that you don't really need. Yep, I've been there. Oh, the vet bills are hard with animals. Any of our clients that come to us and have pets, we're like, cool, where's your do you have a fund for the pets? Because throughout the year they cost so much more money than people realize. And it doesn't mean that like you can't have pets and like enjoy them, but it means like setting aside monthly what you need to cover you for the whole year. And we'll talk about that more when we get to some of the practical steps. Okay, so I want everybody to remember this, where they're going to try to be more intentional about their spending, and we'll come back to that, okay? So let's think about what else we want. We're going to be more intentional with our spending. This might mean that you get to add something into your spending plan. Lindsay, my client that I talked about, she wanted the travel fund. She wanted to be saving for her future and experiencing the world, spending her money on that. So what do you want? Do you have goals? Do you know how much you need to put towards your goals? Yep, travel fund. Yeah, so let's figure that out right now, okay? I want everybody to pick something that you want to do. So that's, oh, Nicole's just popping up great ones. So you can borrow one from Nicole if you don't have your own. So whether that's a home renovation, a new house, a new car, vacation, wedding, unpaid time off work, right? Maybe you want to take some time where you're not having an income, so you need to save for that. Drop it in the chat. Yeah, these are great ones. Emergency fund, down payment for home, travel fund. So I'd like to see everybody drop one thing in the chat that you want to work towards. Ruby says, oh, wow. Oh, good job. Okay. Angela said replacement windows. Sometimes it's not the most exciting things. That's okay. We'll add something else fun in there too. When I get old, I need to have sufficient money and want to have the same life that I have. Yeah, right. Just quality of life, right? And keeping up with that as you get older. Ruby wants a new house and wants a travel fund, retirement fund. Yeah. So important, Sandy. Okay. So I would, if you have a paper and pen in front of you, if not, you could just create a note on your phone or something. I want you to write your goal at the top. Okay, and underline it. Or your goals. If you're super money motivated, like Nicole, write your goals at the top. Okay. And then I'm going to give you a couple minutes, and I want you to think through what this will cost. Maybe you already know, maybe you've already done this estimate. If not, take a couple minutes, go ahead and do that now. Write down the number right underneath. So you have your goal, you underlined it, and then write down what it's going to cost underneath. Sandy, for retirement, it might be a little more complicated. So if you have that number, if not, a good estimate is like your salary right before retirement times 10.
Okay, thank you. That's my dog. Yeah, come on, let's go.
Okay, and then when you have the number, just put done in the chat. So I know you've got it. I see Angela's cat too. Like animals always love my voice. Like whenever I do these, they're always like coming around. Yeah, that's a good travel fund number, and that's usually like what we see people do is 5K. It's good. I have a client who goes to Costa Rica every few months, so hers is a little more, but that's like her happy place and she won't go anywhere else. So we're like, all right, well, we're gonna plan for it. We're gonna make it happen. Okay. 20K for the windows, Angela. Yeah, I believe it. That's okay. They're gonna be beautiful. Are you in like your the home you want to be in for a while? Yeah. Even if you're not, like that increases the value so much. There's an app. I know this sometimes makes people feel better. I can't remember what it's called right now. I'll have to look. I can't think of what it's called. I'll look and I'll find a way to send it to you later. But it's where you can see what you're doing to something and like how that's going to impact the value of your home. And it usually like multiplies so much more than just the actual purchase. So it kind of makes you feel better. Like, yes, this is the investment that I'm making. Sandy, 210,000. Oh yes, yeah. For retirement, I was like, what is going to the house? Yeah, for retirement. Okay, cool. All right. So the next thing to do is right underneath that, when do you need to have this amount by? When do you need to make that payment? If there are multiple payments involved, when are those due? So write that underneath. Every paycheck, yeah. Because Deeper, you had said, yeah, so are you setting aside money every paycheck? Is that the goal?
Yeah.
Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Yeah. Angela said within 5 years. Okay, so you've got some time, Angela. Good. I didn't know if this was like an emergency thing that was like 20K suddenly. Within 10 years, Sandy, yeah. Okay, so the next step, how many months are in between now and that date? 60 months. Once you have that number of the months, you're going to divide the total amount that you're going to come up with by those months. So Angela, it'll be 20,000 over 60 months. Okay. Once you've done that, maybe you have a calculator. If not, I used to have them. I was an actuary before this, so I did financial risk management. I had calculators like around all the time, although you could use your phone. But once you have that number, that's what you're going to set aside monthly. That's it. You just took a big goal and broke it down into little steps. Okay. So there's two things that you're going to do right now. The first is open up a dedicated savings account for that goal and automate payments monthly until it's met. Okay, that's the first thing you're going to do. So get the account set up. Sandy, I'm going to recommend that you meet with a financial advisor because you want to be investing that money. And it'll depend on the time horizon of when you need that. Ruby says I messed up in that case. Wait, Ruby said, oh, because is it like two? Okay, so that's the step 2 then, Ruby. That's okay. Is if you worry about having enough money to put towards this goal to make that monthly contribution amount, that's where you get to revisit the intentional spending plan that we just talked about. So for everything that you spend money on, right? We had just picked one category that we were going to start trying to be more intentional about. You get to do that for everything and see what you come up with. You also get to be creative and think this is the monthly goal or this is the monthly amount that I want for this goal. How am I either going to find that in my current income by being intentional with my spending, or how am I going to go out and make that happen? Do I need to find a side hustle? Do I need to ask for a raise? What is the next step for me to make that happen? Any questions on that? Any clarifications needed? Okay, what we just walked through, what you have on your paper, you can do that for any goal. That's the easiest way to figure out what you want to be putting your money away for in addition to your regular spending that you're doing. Just break it down in that way. Okay, so some of you touched on some pretty basic goals like the emergency fund that we want to have. I want to share with you now some what we call like the boring things to do, but they're not really boring. And even if they are critical to making bolder choices with your money, right? If our mission is to make sure that all women are able to be able to make the bolder choices that they want in their life, we have to be talking about the boring, the simple, the foundational money moves too, because those are really critical. And this helps you feeling like you are in control. It helps you feel like you're prepared for emergencies. That's how you start building wealth and getting out of the cycles where you're in a scarcity mindset and you're worried about not having enough. So who feels like they're prepared for emergencies financially right now? Okay, that's okay. That gets to become a goal if that's not you, right? So we talk about emergencies in two ways. So the first is a smaller emergency that could happen, like a car repair tomorrow, right? We use a rainy day fund to prepare for this emergency. Your rainy day fund should go in a basic savings account. It should be connected to your checking account. And if something happens to your car or you have to make an unexpected purchase, you have those funds available. You're not putting something on a credit card. It's not impacting your ability to pay other bills. The rainy day fund is super important in that way. Usually a good amount is at least $1,000 all the way up to like 1 month of expenses that you would want to have in there in that rainy day fund. It's whatever is going to make you feel comfortable. A good way to estimate this amount is you could look back at like what little emergencies did I have over the past year? How many times did my car break down? How many times did I have to pay for something that was unexpected and I had to use a credit card, right? That's a good amount of what you should have in your rainy day fund. On the other hand, we also talk about the emergency fund. This is 3 to 6 months of your earnings, and it should be in a high yield savings account. So it's growing a little bit, but you don't want to invest it because the point of this account is to serve as a backup. If you lose your job, if your health suffers and you can't work as much. And with our clients, we've seen that the emergency fund is a game changer. It's not always super exciting. It's not like the fun thing that they're working towards. But the number one reason we see women making less than healthy money choices or staying in toxic situations at work or personally even is because they don't have that savings set aside. They don't have that runway of a few months if they needed to do something drastic or leave their job or make a big change. Okay. Peace of mind. That's what being prepared for emergencies is all about. You're more likely to make decisions based on, like we said, the rational thing instead of the emotional thing. Okay. So who has an idea now of what should go in their rainy day fund and their emergency fund? It's 1 month of expenses for the rainy day fund, 3 to 6 months of earnings for the emergency fund. And again, just decide what you want and set aside little by little until you get there. Every little bit counts. Okay. So next, let's talk about maxing out your benefits. Pay attention to what's available to you. Depending on where you work, companies are pretty creative now about the benefits that are available to you, whether that's like paying for a gym membership. We've heard some companies that are even doing things around like student loan repayments. At the very basic level, make sure that you are contributing enough to your 401k to get the company match, right? So whatever retirement savings they're offering you, if you contribute a certain amount, make sure that you're doing that. The same is true for a health savings account. A lot of companies provide an amount that can go into there. The best thing to do if you're not sure is to connect with HR, find out what's available to you, and then decide what you can do each paycheck to put aside for retirement. But you want to make sure that you're getting the most of that basically free money that they're giving to you. Okay. Let's talk about earning more money, right? We started out in the beginning talking about women aren't negotiating enough. We're not asking for enough. A lot of times it's because we view it as like this one conversation that we're going to have throughout the year, right? We wait until the annual review is coming up. We start thinking about the conversation then, like the conversation, but really the conversation about your salary, about your role, it's an ongoing journey throughout the year. this, talking about money conversations at work, it's like a whole other ball game. We go in pretty in depth about this in our workshop series that we do for our members, but we do have a blog post that was written by one of our coaches that has great information in it. So I'm going to put that in the chat. I would encourage you to read this and start thinking about how you're going to plan for your next raise. The general idea is that you want to start a few months before the annual review, start having those conversations then. You can even start like a year ahead, right? Let's say right now, if your annual review isn't going to be till the end of the year, start talking to your supervisor about what needs to happen this year for me, what projects do I need to take on, what accomplishments do I need to have, so that by the end of the year, I've really been an active participant all year in making sure that I'm eligible for a raise and I'm eligible for a promotion. And again, this blog really has like step by step what you can do. Okay, any questions so far? No? Okay. So the next one is time in the market is more important than timing the market. So we've had quite a few clients who come to us and they're like, I need to start investing because I'm so sick of my partner and his friends bragging about their Robinhood account performance. Like, I'm so sick of them talking about all these stocks and I want to know too. And we're like, okay, that's great. Amazing. Yes, let's invest because more women need to be doing that. But let's take a step back. What do you want your money to be doing? Why do you want to build wealth? And 9 times out of 10, it's not about day trading. It's not about like being a part of the game, keeping up with the Joneses or whatever you want to call it. It's about long-term investment. It's about security. Whereas everybody else who was in those conversations was talking about it as a game. So you don't have to get caught up with all of the hype. Your time in the market is more important than timing the market. So start setting aside little by little, whatever you can. And whether that's in meeting with a financial advisor, whether that's using an app like Robinhood or another sort of robo-advisor platform, and just put it in there. Don't get caught up in the hype. Don't get caught up in checking it all the time, okay? Paying down short-term debt. Who has ever felt really, really bad about debt that they've had? Yep. Yeah, I spent 7 years having between anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 in credit card debt. That was when I was in a really good career. I was earning a good income, but because I wasn't aware of all of these things and the way my spending was a coping mechanism and the emotion behind it, I always had credit card debt and it weighed on me and it impacted everything I did. Was like this baggage hanging over my head. Like I'm bad at money. I have this debt. I'm out of control. So even if it's not that much debt, it can make us feel bad. And ultimately it can keep us from adding to the monthly payments for our savings that we talked about, right? Think about how much more you can put into your travel fund or into your home renovations if you don't have to also pay off debt. Also, the cost in interest can be more than we realize, especially with credit cards. So while you don't have to starve yourself paying it down as fast as possible, it doesn't make you a bad person. If you have short-term debt, you should prioritize getting rid of it as one of your top goals. So that gets to be included in your spending plan is I'm going to make the minimum payments. And then how much can I make on top of that, right? To really get rid of this as fast as possible. Okay, finally, how often do you look at your spending and balances? Yeah, Sandy, I'll answer that in a second. How often? Weekly. Awesome. How often do you look at your spending and balances? Monthly. Cool, pretty good. We recommend a once a month, we call it a money date. This is where you're looking at your balances, you're reflecting on your spending for the last month. In our membership program, we do this as a group with our clients. We all get together. We can celebrate each other, hold each other accountable, talk about how we all messed up and spent too much food because we were stressed. And the point is that you don't have to obsess over your numbers, but being aware of what's happening at least on a monthly basis It'll help you keep your goals in mind and help you stick to your spending plan. Yeah, weekly, monthly, with each statement, right? As long as you're doing that reflecting and really looking back on like, am I working towards my goals? Is everything moving in the direction that I want it to? If not, why? And if it is, what else can I be doing? Am I doing what I said I would do? Any questions about that before I go back up to Sandy's question? Okay, so Sandy says someone once spoke that people can be addicted to being in debt. Is that right? Yeah, that's a complicated question, or I guess I should say answer, because a lot of times it's not about the addiction to the debt, it's about the addiction to the spending. Like I talked about spending being a coping mechanism. It makes sense, right, in our world, because we get so many messages, and now on social media too, about like what somebody else is doing. A pair of boots in an ad on somebody who looks totally put together and happy, like we think we're buying that feeling, right? However she feels right now, I'm going to buy everything she's wearing because I'm going to hope that it makes me feel that way. And so we can get addicted to spending money. It's almost like a high. Something else that's interesting to read about is the hedonic treadmill. So this is the idea that we have generally a base level of happiness that we can improve with things that actually improve our quality of life, with things that improve long-term happiness. But for the most part, when it comes to spending money, unless it's something that, again, is like an experience, like travel, a better home, that type of thing, a lot of it is just part of this treadmill where we want a quick fix. We think that something's going to make us feel so much better about life in the short term. And maybe it does for a little bit. A new car would feel amazing, and after a couple of months, you kind of get used to it and you slide back down. So people who are in a lot of debt, maybe one reason could be that they kind of got addicted to that treadmill of always buying more, always seeking the next best thing. I know that was a long answer, but that's a topic that I'm passionate about. So thank you for asking, Sandy. Okay, I want to hear any questions from you. And I also want to make sure that you have takeaways and things that you are going to make changes with tonight, this weekend, sometime soon. So go ahead and unmute and share your questions, put them in the chat, and also share your takeaways.
Do you have any advice for, like, there are moments when I get really excited about a budget and I'm like, oh, I'm going to stick to this. And then moments when you just feel like I have to do something to relax. How do you balance those?
Yeah, great question. What are the things that help you relax? Like, what are the things that you're kind of spending on that maybe isn't in your plan?
Going to Whole Foods.
Yeah. So what is it? Is it about the experience? Like, what is it about that?
I think it's like, I remember like being a kid going to the grocery store with my parents and getting a treat. And now I just do it for myself. When I would like to reward myself, I'm like, I'm getting a treat. I'm going to Whole Foods, getting a snack.
I love that. It's funny because I do that too sometimes. It's like the magic of Whole Foods. How often do you find yourself doing this?
On a like thrice weekly basis.
Okay. Is it something that you think should be in your spending plan? Like, is it like that you're spending so much that it's like making you go over budget and miss out on other things?
No, it's not like a crazy amount. And it's also sort of like I've been working from home, so it's kind of like a break, like a
right. That's only place. Yeah.
Yeah,
For sure.
out of the house for a while. So there are benefits to it.
Yeah.
But sometimes it feels just like a silly thing to be doing.
Yeah. So I think what you should do is set a limit for yourself. Like, I want to go 3 times a week. I'm going to spend this much, and then add that to your budget. Well, now it's an intentional spending plan, right? Because now you don't feel bad about it. What happens when we don't include things on our budget that we know we're going to spend on anyways, is that we just keep like this nasty cycle of making ourselves feel like crap about what we're doing with our money. And so at the end of the month, we're looking back and we're like, oh, I spent on Whole Foods again, instead of being like, wow, that was great that I took that time for myself and I was able to do that. And it fits into, you know, what I can afford to do. Right. So the difference isn't you're spending it anyways, but now you feel really good about it. Sandy said, I'll be much more conscious in my spending, put money away, even if it's little by little. Yeah. Yeah, look at the long-term goal and keep that more important than the moment I'm in. Vision boards, Pinterest is a great idea, especially like if you're thinking about the retirement that you could have if you start putting money away, and you can put that in front of you and see it. That's going to help you think about, like, in that moment of, okay, do I need these new boots? I don't know why I keep talking about boots today, because that's my problem apparently. Like, do I need these new boots? Or if I'm looking at my pictures of what I'm going to be able to do if I set that money aside instead, that can just help you kind of think about future you instead of current you. Not that current you doesn't deserve great things, but sometimes she makes the emotional decision.
So I do have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you mentioned something about groups that you have.
Yes.
Do you find those groups are helpful in terms of having some sense of accountability? Or do you have a recommendation of who or someone personal, or how would you, I guess, I don't know how to trust someone who I don't know to hold me accountable for something that I'm trying to strive towards.
Yeah, that's a great question. And thank you for asking that. I'm probably a little biased about our groups, so I will answer the second part first, about how do you find somebody that you can trust to hold you accountable. Something that I believe is so important when it comes to money is being able to find a community that is open and vulnerable about their own experiences, about just admitting, you know, their faults, admitting things that they wish they were doing better at, and working at it together. And the reason for that is when you have a community like that, it immediately takes the pressure off, right? Like with money, we think we all have to be perfect. And if we're not perfect with money, if we don't know the right things, then there's something wrong with us, because it's such a core need in our society to be good at money, to be financially successful, right? That it starts meaning something about ourselves. So when we find a community that is with other women or other people who are working towards the same thing, that loneliness, that isolation, it starts going away. And that's when you start kind of opening up more and feeling like, yeah, I am going to take the steps that I need to. With our community, they're led by, actually, I'll go to this slide now so you can see it. Our community is led by expert money coaches. So these are people like myself who have been trained in the emotional and behavioral side of money, as well as the practical side. And that's because money can be such a sensitive topic. There can be so much pain and even trauma around money. And so you want to make sure that you're meeting with somebody, whether it's one-on-one or in a group, who understands that. And so that they're not going to shame you for anything that you're doing. They're going to be understanding about, like, hey, maybe you made this mistake. That was because of this pattern or this thing that happened in your past. That doesn't make you a bad person. We don't need to add to however you're already feeling about it, right? So does that answer your question a little bit? And something I will say about, like, if it's a financial advisor or somebody you're working with one-on-one, is absolutely always feel like you can interview people and ask them, like, you know, what's important to you? How do you work with clients? What kinds of questions do you ask your clients? Always advocate for yourself and interview somebody that you're going to be working with if they're going to be specifically managing your money.
Yeah, that does. Thank you.
Cool. So I'm going to segue into talking about this a little bit, just because that was kind of perfect. And so thank you. And then we can go back to any questions. In the Boulder Money community, what we're doing is helping women identify what goals they want to have, what goals they should have based on their financial situation and the financial security that we want them to have. And then we're walking them through that step by step. We're guiding them to get to those goals. And we're also including the community aspect, so it doesn't feel like something that you're working through alone. Everybody who joins is paired with a money coach, and that coach, you can access them Monday through Friday by text message. The first thing that you'll do when you're paired with them is sit down with them one-on-one, set your goals, talk about what you want to accomplish. And then everything that we do is either through text or in the group coaching sessions that are every other week. This is one of the most unique programs that's out there, I will say, because of the tech-based aspect. We have our own online dashboard. You connect all your bank accounts. We see everything right there, all of your goals. You can track progress right in it. And then you also, your coach can see it. So your coach can walk you through, okay, I see that you want to set up this account. These are the steps you need to follow to do that. We're going to start setting aside this money every paycheck. And your coach can also see your transactions and help you stay accountable for the intentional spending as well. If this is something that you want help with, if you feel like you're looking for money guidance, a money community, I can offer everybody here a spot in that. It's our 3-month coaching program, and that would be only $98 for all of you. I would give you a coupon code to use. We often find within the first 3 months with doing the intentional spending exercises, we're finding hundreds of dollars per month for our clients. So we know this is affordable. We know this is an amazing opportunity. That's where I say that I'm biased. But if you are interested, the number here you can text. I would love to hear from you at that number. Those messages come to me, so I will see them. And I'd love to hear what is the most important goal you want to achieve. And when you send that to that number, then I'll get you started right away. I will help you get into the program and help you get started working with somebody. Okay, so any questions on that? Any questions on anything that I've said? I know we covered a lot today, but hopefully this gave you a really good foundation of where to go from here.
Amy, there's a question in the chat.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Yeah, I didn't see that one. Okay, when I save, I find that the money comes in handy for an unexpected bill, and then I am back starting over again at zero. How does one stop that from having to use the funds that I'm saving? So Sandy, it sounds like you might need to be setting aside a little bit more for unexpected bills. So maybe like increase your goal a little bit for that rainy day fund. And then one thing that I didn't touch on too much, but if it's an issue of not having enough to set aside for savings, there's so many options available to earn more money, right? To start thinking about what is a side hustle I can do, what is something that I can do so that I can set aside a little bit more. But I think if it feels like a cycle where you're paying for that bill and then starting over again at zero, it sounds like you might need to have a little bit more set aside to be prepared for that. Or if it's something that's happening regularly, maybe you account for that separately in your spending plan and then use the rainy day fund for other things, right? Does that help?
Thank you. I've been writing all down and keeping track of that, and really appreciate listening to everybody and everything you have to say and the things you're advising us of and your company. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for being here and for interacting.
Oh, one question I had, Ruby here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you have like any financial advisors in any of your sessions or any financial advisor that I can talk to with Borrowed Money?
Yes. Yeah. So what we do, we have financial advisors that we like when our clients are ready, we refer them out to them. We have a call and facilitate that conversation. But I can also give you that information too, if you're just interested in meeting with financial advisors. We always have 3 that we refer out just so that we're in compliance with like regulations around what we can do as coaches. But the nice thing about being in the membership too, if you're somebody who wants to just learn more about investing, is that we have the advisors come in every so often and do these workshops that we then record if you miss them, about how to get started with investing. So we've had some around like how to make money in the stock market. We've had one around like how to get started with apps like Robinhood. So usually whatever our members want to know about, we find a financial expert and we bring them in to talk about it. But yes, we can also facilitate conversations with the financial advisors as well.
Thank you. So
Yeah.
will you be referring those 3 in the chat, or is it like something you can share later?
Yeah, if you could email me, Ruby, I'm putting it in the chat, then I can send that to you.
Sure, thank you. That helps.
Of course. Okay, any other questions? I think that's it then. We're at time. That worked out. I'm always like, is it going to go over? We made it perfectly. Thank you so much, Angela. I hope to hear from some of you. Don't hesitate to reach out. You have my number, you have my email now. So any questions that you think of later, I'm here for you. It was nice to get to know you all, and thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.